introduce myself. All right, so hi everyone, my name is Catherine Bravo. I am a program coordinator here at DeRoe, and I've been working on the tech coaching program for about a year now. Welcome everyone. Like I said, if you're here today, it's because you're interested in volunteering your time to help an older adult learn technology skills. Some of you may know this already, but DeRoe is an organization that addresses social isolation among older adults. And this program uses technology as a way to help improve feelings of social connectedness. So we hope that by showing an older adult how to connect to the digital world, you'll help them better access the information they need, as well as connect with their friends and family. And you will most likely be forming a friendship along the way. I think that's a big part of this. So DeRoe is an organization based in New York City and Westchester. It serves those over the age of 65. We offer support through a lot of different programs. They can be over telephone, Zoom, or in person. So for example, we have classes and discussion groups in person, and we also have some phone-based visiting programs. Tech coaching is one of the programs that we have here that is very high demand at DeRoe. We have a lot of late tech adopters who wish to improve their proficiency using technology. And we hope that with your help and guidance, you'll help them learn skills that can help improve their quality of life. This program started about 3 years ago, and within the past year or so, we have started working with some nonprofits that are a part of the Village to Village network. And so we're working with about 15 villages right now in different states, such as Maryland, Virginia, and Colorado. DeRoe volunteers, if you don't live in Manhattan, we do also offer opportunities to volunteer over Zoom. Please do message me if that's you, just so that I'm aware of that. And I think we also have one person who might live in Westchester. Let me know if you're interested in meeting with people in person. So we're just going to be covering just topics related to how to be a good tech coach and some best practices to use. I'm going to first start by just talking about factors that impact older adults when they're adopting technology later in life. So these are just things to keep in mind and help provide context for the importance of this program. So the first one is ageism, which is typically defined as discrimination based on age, but in this context, we're thinking about it more as the assumption that older adults are not able to learn technology. So this is an assumption a lot of people hold, including some of the older adults themselves. So this can make people a lot less willing to help older adults with technology, and it also makes older adults a lot less willing to try. So we're hoping, you as volunteers can be encouraging and patient and really thoughtful. And the second thing to keep in mind is the physical challenges that come with aging. So a decline in vision and hearing and dexterity is a natural part of aging. And this can make working with new technology difficult for people if it's not adapted to their needs. So a lot of the requests we get might involve helping somebody adapt a device to those needs. So examples could be helping somebody enlarge text on their screen, maybe using Siri to help navigate a phone, for example, maybe using type to text to write messages or emails. And another one that I see is learning how to use the magnification tools to enlarge parts of a screen. So no worries if you're not familiar with accessibility features. Neither was I a year ago, but most things you can Google or just do some research online to figure out how to turn them on and also how to use them. So I encourage, before you meet with somebody, you'll likely know whether or not they do have a visual or auditory impairment. And then you can just kind of look up what's available on that specific device. So you can just have a sense of what's possible. And the next thing to keep in mind is somebody's personal background. There's a lot of reasons why somebody may be adopting technology later in life. And this could include things like their income, education, their working experience, and their native language. So these factors can affect the types of devices they've had access to and what devices they're most familiar with. And so for some people who worked in professions where they weren't using computers and phones, They may now realize the need to know how to use them and may feel left behind or left out of the tech world. And then the last thing in mind are just some general trends that are affecting just how necessary it is for older adults to access the internet and use devices. So for the first time, it might be required to really learn how to use technology. And so some examples could be like retailers moving online, the expansion of telehealth services, how companies require email to sign up for virtually anything, and some older adults may not be using an email currently. Companies like airlines might have switched to online ticketing systems, and there's plenty of other examples. And then the last thing to keep in mind is that somebody might be learning how to use a device like a smartphone or computer because they're becoming more popular. They might have gotten it as a gift from a family member. And so you can really be helping them learn how to use it if their family member's not around, or they don't have anybody that's currently visiting them that can show them how to use it. So I noticed that does come up a lot. Does anybody have any questions about any of the things I mentioned? All right. If not, I'm going to show a video that's a testimonial about two people who have been in this program for a while. I think that they were meeting together for about a year, which is really long. That's not usual for the program, but I think they really got along. I'm using a different computer than I normally do, so just give me a second to figure out how to share this. And at the end, please let me know what your takeaways are.
While I was working, I learned how to use some parts of the computer, like with a gun to my head. I always say that I was dragged into the 21st century. I've grown in confidence. I've grown in comfort. And I don't know everything I don't know, but at least I feel more comfortable saying, okay, how do I do this? And how does that connect to that? It's not easy for me to say, I don't know how to do this, or I don't understand what you're saying, or I don't know where to look. But that's fallen away out of necessity and out of more self-acceptance and out of the wonderful experiences that I've had in general with Durot, and then specifically in this program.
So I want to say, I kind of felt like through this experience, I realized that I'm no longer in a bubble of technology where everyone knows everything, and how I need step back and kind of realize not everyone knows everything, and it's not easy to learn everything because there's no, I think Andrea told me how there's no guidebook when you get an iPhone or a MacBook. You do everything by yourself, look for it online. And it's the knowledge is very much a privilege to have.
I came from a world where, I was competent and I knew what I was doing, and I'm a social worker. I've been doing it for more than 30 years. So in my area, I'm a contender, but in this, I'm a baby or maybe a toddler, moving into whatever. And I let it go. And I think that's the compassion and the gentleness that Sydney presented. And I was amazed and thrilled that you were so able to explain things, things that are more foreign to me, but explain them in a way that I could grasp them pretty quickly.
I thought I knew a lot of stuff about computers and my iPhone and everything, but I remember how she was one specific moment was we were talking about the sticky notes, about how Andrea wanted to do that so she have on her desktop where she could write down anything reminders or stuff. And I remember I never learned this myself. And I was like surprised. I was like, oh wait. And then I completely like blanked out. I was like, I've never done this before. And like how like even I'm surprised, like technology is like a very big realm. And like I feel like I'm a constant learner with Andrea on learning stuff. So I feel like she's also improving me, so I know and I can explain to others for the future.
Pieces of reference and information are incredibly helpful and life enhancing, because I don't have to go, bumbling around like, how do I do this? And go to Staples and ask strangers. It's a much safer world, It's a much safer and cozier world.
My favorite thing, well, my favorite moments are when we have our interactions. And I remember how, like, let's say we download something and we want to save it. And I wouldn't tell, like, Andrea exactly what happened, like, the exact steps that she can learn herself. But I remember, like, always just saying, we're in preview and we have to download it to export as PDF. And I'd be like, she would forget the first step. And I would say file. And then she's like, yes, export as PDF. And she just says it out loud with so much excitement. And I'm just like, you're already learning.
It's also, helped me be much more comfortable with technical stuff and my sense of, you can do this, don't get excited, or okay, give it a couple of tries, keep trying, and not get so scared. If I hit the wrong thing or I'm not looking at what I'm doing and something else pops up, I used to go, what's that? Where did that come from? Oh, I don't, my reactivity level would be high. And now I might get frustrated, especially if I'm tired, but now I know I can handle it and there's a way, and chill, and it's gonna be okay. And it's exciting to feel somewhat more independent. I mean, more independent about this, really, and to grow in my new capacity, in my abilities. I'm tickled. I call my son and I go, okay, let's do FaceTime.
All right, I hope everyone liked the video. Does anybody want to share any thoughts that they've had while watching?
Yeah, sure. So one note I took was, which was a good point, that in the commercial marketplace, a lot of knowledge is assumed. And so anybody that's a late tech adopter is at a natural disadvantage because of that.
Yeah, definitely. And it can be hard to like find that information online because there are tech manuals online, but most people don't really know where to find those. I didn't even really know that there are, like, for example, for iPhones, you can find them on Apple's website. You can find user manuals for pretty much anything, but otherwise, like, how would anybody know? Does anybody else want to share?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And that is, what if my tech coaching client needs skills that I don't have?
That is a good question. I would say that comes up a lot. And I think what I normally tell the older adults is that, like, your job is really to just be patient and to help them find that information online. And it's sometimes the learning experience for the both of you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I tell, we don't expect you to be experts. And also, if you're I don't know if you're a Duro volunteer or a village volunteer, but you're likely going to know what the person wants help with before you start. So you can, so you can either let the administrator know or me know, or you can just like look it up.
And I'm going to interrupt real fast. Keith is actually from Silver Spring Village.
Oh, okay.
But first and foremost, I appreciate all of your patience as I was trying to figure out how to get it on my computer off my tablet. But I find that most of the late tech adapters are so appreciative to watch you all try to figure it out or come back with the answer later, because it's just, for them, it's very helpful for them to see that how to learn and that you guys also are learning as you're going. Not as you're going, but if they bring up a question that you don't immediately know the answer to.
Yeah, I think it can be really great to show somebody how you would figure something out, like if it were you. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Yeah, and I think some other things that I wanted to touch on about the video are just like the emotional aspects to this. A lot of people have like fears surrounding technology. And so a big part of like this volunteering experience is just being somebody who's patient and kind and can really sit with them and answer their questions, and just help them feel more comfortable in general. You know, there's not really a lot of other places you could go for that kind of help. So I will share my screen again, but if anybody wants to share any final thoughts, can. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the program structure. So we match volunteers with an older adult one-on-one. So older adults are typically interested in learning some aspect of technology. It can really range. Like I said, I try to tell the volunteers in advance, like what the person wants help with. So you can either choose to work with that person or look it up on your own. We know that there's classes online that seniors can go to, but I think what makes this program different is that it's one-on-one help on an ongoing basis. So we ask that you schedule to meet with a person for 1 hour a week, and then schedule follow-up visits on an ongoing basis so that you can either work on the same topic or cover different topics. So these visits can take place either in person or remotely. And we ask that you schedule your next visit while you're on your current one. We notice that sometimes volunteers and older adults get disconnected, or the older adult doesn't want to bother their volunteer by asking for more visits. So when you do meet with somebody, do let them know that you're willing to work with them more than once, and you're willing to meet with them on a weekly basis. And you can figure out a schedule that works for the both of you. It doesn't need to be between 9 to 5 hours. It could really be at any time, on the weekend, on the evenings. And for people who are planning to do in-person visits at DeRote, you know, everybody that is a DeRote constituent has had a social worker visit them already. So we know what their home situation is like so that our volunteers are comfortable. And yeah, so we ask that your goal is to just meet once a week on an ongoing basis. And we recommend you meet with the same person anywhere from 4 to 8 times, just so that you do have enough time to really learn one specific topic or cover several different topics, depending on what they want to learn. And that also gives you enough time to like form a relationship with the person and get to know each other. And then we say to limit it to 8, at least at DeRote. I think at the villages, you could probably go for as long as you want. But we say 8 at DeRote because we do have a lot of people who want this kind of help. And we're hoping that as a volunteering with us, you'll be able to help more than one person. Does anybody have any questions about this slide? Okay, so yeah, we also don't want you to become this person's personal hotline. We want you to teach them skills that help them access things online and help increase their feelings of independence. So, you know, you are welcome to meet with the person for, you know, as long as you want, but just do keep that in mind. You want to help them build independence. And keep in mind, like this idea of like, you don't know what you don't know. So an older adult may not know what's possible to do on their device. So as you're meeting together on a regular basis, you might learn things about them and then be able to suggest topics that they might find interesting or they might find useful, or just things in general that might make their life easier. So do keep that in mind. So next, I'll just talk about some of the common tech topics we get requests for. So we do get requests to help people set up new devices or just learn how to use a device in general that somebody may have gotten recently. We do get some requests to learn how to use Zoom. Zoom has become so popular, and a lot of older adults may want to be able to access classes online or just communicate with friends and family over Zoom. So you might be showing somebody how to use Zoom. We do get questions about accessibility. So things like using Siri or using dictation, like I mentioned, or just playing around with the settings so to make it easier for the person to use. We do get the commonly requested like helping somebody clear out their inbox or helping with spam or helping somebody create an email. I do see that pretty often. Like I mentioned, some people now feel like they have to have an email, or maybe they got locked out of their email. There's a lot of different topics that related to that. We do get requests for apps that are already installed on somebody's phone. So that could include like using the calendar or reminders. And then lastly, this like how to Google really just refers to showing somebody just how to find things online. You might show somebody one, how to Google, but also how to then look into a search and figure out what's good information to look at. We have some tech guides online that I will get to. I think there's a slide dedicated to that, but they are about these topics. Okay, so some resources that I'd like to mention that I will provide to all of you after this meeting. I send a link to a Dropbox folder. That way in the folder, I can put links to DeRote's tech guides. We sometimes have tech coach gatherings. We're planning to schedule a couple of those this year. And that's just an opportunity for you to meet other volunteers who are also doing tech coaching and learn from one another. Highly encourage you to use YouTube as a resource so that if you don't know how to do something, you can also just send somebody a video or show them when you're with them. And also in the folder that I'll send, there is some links to like user manuals and online databases that major, tech companies like Apple, Google, and Samsung have. They have step-by-step directions for basically anything you can do on the devices. So that could be really helpful to look at if you don't know how to do something.
Catherine, before you go to the next slide, I just want to say that those of you from the villages, you will be getting the same Dropbox folder, but instead of coming from Catherine, it will come from the administrator of your village. And I know not only do we have Silver Spring Village here today, but we've got someone from Georgetown Village as well as Friendship Heights and East Rock Creek Village. So all of you will be receiving from whoever your administrator is the same information that Catherine's saying she's going to be giving to you all. And one more thing, the tech coach gatherings that Catherine mentioned are not just for DeRote, they're for village volunteers are also invited to attend those as well.
Yes, okay, thank you. And then one thing that's also not on here is we have like a tech coaching guide that basically summarizes everything that we're going to cover today. So feel free to take notes, but also know that like we do have a document that we'll send that summarizes everything. So like I mentioned, we have these tech guides. They're PDFs on DeRote's website. If you just Google DeRote tech guides, you'll find a link to them. And they look like this. Basically, each page is dedicated to a step. And they're about topics like using Zoom, making calls, texting, emailing, downloading apps. And they can be really helpful to look at because it shows you how to break down, a topic into particular steps. And we have them for devices like iPhone, iPad, Android phones and tablets, and Windows computers. We don't have any currently for MacBooks, so just keep that in mind. And I'll talk a little bit about what to do before your visit. So like I said, at DeRote, we use an online system called Monami. So you'll be able to pick who you're going to work with before you meet with them. So you'll know what they want help with. So before your visit, you can review the tech coaching guide. Like I said, it'll cover everything that we talked about today. You can also look up the topic that the person wants help with, so you're familiar with it beforehand. You can see if there's a tech guide for it, so that you can talk about it with that person when you give them a call. And then the first thing you're going to do is you'll be given their phone number, and you will do an introductory call. You'll call them and say the name of where you're volunteering from as the first thing you say. So you can say, hi, like my name is Catherine, I'm a volunteer from DeRote, and just confirm with them what their request is. So I say it is to introduce the agency name first, because some people screen their calls and they might not answer an unknown number. And also you might want to leave a voicemail explaining who you are, because sometimes people will just not answer the phone if it's an unknown number. So when you are speaking with them, tell them that you're going to schedule a date and a time to work with them for an hour. And then ask them to charge their device before you meet, as well as find a notebook or somewhere to take notes. And then do make sure that they have the passwords they need for whatever it is you're working on. So just confirm, like, if you're going to work on email, just ask them that they do have access to their email, because you might get derailed and then have to work on that before you actually get to the topic that they wanted help with. Does anybody have any questions?
Hi, I have a question. So the matching is really asking that we be somewhat of a jack of all trades across all the devices, as opposed to looking at the gallery of individuals and trying to match someone also based on the ownership of their devices to what you have.
So I think that the villages, they do matching. Like, I think they take into consideration like what you know and what they know. I'm not sure, but I think Vanessa looks like she's about to chime in. You're muted, Vanessa.
It depends on the village. I know in Silver Spring Village, I do it very similar to Catherine, but my numbers of late tech adapters is a lot smaller than Catherine's are. But I do say this person uses a Mac, this person uses a Dell, this person, whatever they use, and the volunteer gets to choose, who, like with Catherine, excuse me, I don't assign, people choose who they want to work with.
Yeah.
And we did have an issue where most of our trainers, our coaches, were people who were not Mac users. They were not Apple users. They were all PC users or Androids, and they've learned how to do the Macs because they realized otherwise they wouldn't be able to coach. So, but it's not all that way.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Most people want to work on pretty simple requests. And for the most part, I think you'll be able to figure it out. But if not, you're welcome to just choose somebody that has the same device that you have, or just is using a device that you're already familiar with. I hope that answers the question. Okay, so during your visit, I'm going to go into the best practices after this. But you want to just start your visit by just start having social conversation, just get to know the person, have fun. You don't have to be super professional about it. It's a lot more fun that way, and I think you'll make the person feel more comfortable working with you. When you're there, do review what their goal was for that visit, and even ask them why they want to learn, because that could really help you figure out how to go about it. And like I mentioned earlier, while you're on the visit, do plan any follow-up sessions. So if the person only wants something that you were able to resolve within an hour, great. But if they do need further help, do let them know when you're next available. All right. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the best practices. And so all of these, they're listed in the tech coaching guide. So I'm just going to go through them. So when it comes to visuals, this can mean two things. It could mean making sure that both you and that person have a shared visual. So if you're working together in person, you're looking at the same screen. If you're working together remotely, do try to get them onto Zoom so that you can screen share with them and see what it is they're looking at. During the pandemic, we only had volunteers helping people remotely. And as you can imagine, it's really challenging to help somebody if it's just over the phone. So one of the first goals was always that the volunteer would get that person onto Zoom. That way they can see their device and then, help them from there. And we do have some people who want to learn Zoom. So if you are meeting with them over the phone, that's going to be the first step. The second part of this is using visual language. And I can't emphasize how important this is. You want to just give clear and simple descriptions of what it is you're referring to when you're giving somebody directions. So you might want to describe the color of text or the color of a button, the shape of a button, where it is on the screen, so the person knows what it is that you're referring to. So a lot of tech lingo might not be familiar to them. So if you start describing the names of buttons, they might not know what you're talking about. But if you say something like, oh, the green circle on the right hand corner of your screen, or the white envelope, you can describe what the icon looks like. So if it's like a picture of a camera or like a speech bubble or some people, being as descriptive as possible, I think is going to be really helpful. And it just gives the person a visual cue to look for when you're giving them directions. So like I said, if you are meeting with somebody remotely, it should be done over Zoom. But if you're not able to use Zoom, some other things you could try are using FaceTime if the person knows how to use FaceTime. If they don't know how to use either of those, you can have them take a screenshot and send it to you over email or text so that you can see what it is they're working on. If they don't know how to take a screenshot or they find that difficult, you can have them take a picture of the screen and text or email it to you. Or if you are FaceTiming on a different device, you could have the person just physically with their camera show you what it is that they're looking at. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about visuals? All right. The next thing to keep in mind is using everyday language. And so we, as everyday tech users, are sometimes unaware of how natural text speech feels to us. So we just ask that you monitor yourself really closely. So somebody might not know what a browser is, or if you use the word icon, they might not know what that means. So you want to just be as descriptive as possible. And try to teach them the tech term by using a more everyday term first, so that they know what you're talking about. And so just some examples of common phrases and clearer ways to say them are, when you say the word enter, you might want to say like type. When you say the word icon, you might want to say it's a picture, or just describe what it looks like. When you say something like click on the link, you might want to say like look for these words written in blue and underlined. Just being as specific as possible. And if you want some examples of this, looking at the tech guides, there are some, like in bold and I think in green are some tech terms with a synonym next to it that you could use to explain it to the person you're working with. So yeah, like I said, do teach them the tech term because that's going to be useful to them just in their everyday life. But try to explain it to them in a way that's easy to explain. The next thing you want to do is make sure you're using one-step directions. And so this is another thing that, like, as everyday tech users, we forget how many steps are involved in executing like what we think is like a simple task. So like, for example, sending an email seems simple enough, but like there might be 10 different steps before you actually go to compose and send an email. So people might inadvertently blend 2 steps into one. So an example of this is if you're telling somebody to scroll to the bottom of the page and click the submit button, that's 2 steps, right? You want to make sure that they're able to go to the bottom of the page, pause, give them time to execute, maybe even ask them like, did you scroll if you're not next to them? And then say, tap on, then the next step is tap on the blue box that says submit. So this is just going to make it easier for you. I think if you say too many words at once, it can get confusing. So just break it down into clear steps. And a good way to catch yourself giving a multi-step direction is to listen for words like and then. So if you say this and then that, you're giving 2 steps at once. And like I said, reviewing the tech guides could be helpful because it is broken down into 1-step directions. individualized pace. So I think this is the thing that our volunteers get complimented for the most. And it's just how patient you guys can be. It's really appreciated. You want to let the person know that you're willing to go as fast or as slow as they need you to go. So you could start the session by letting them know that. And everyone's different. So even the same person might go at different paces depending on what you're talking about. So some visits they might go slower, some visits they might go faster. And you want to remind them that it's not about speed, right? The goal is to help them feel more comfortable and to gain skills. And as a volunteer to do this, you're going to have to get comfortable with silence. Silence can mean that the person is either digesting what you just said, or maybe they're trying to locate on the screen what you just mentioned to them. So sometimes it might take longer than you think for somebody to execute a step, but they just might be thinking about it. And so it's not making them feel rushed is really important. So you can say things like, let me know when you're ready to move on to the next step. The next one is note taking and sketching. This one sometimes gets forgotten because you might be working on something and then it's another thing to sit down and actually write down what those steps are. But it's really helpful if you can leave somebody with notes after your visit with them. Things are a lot easier to understand when you're in person and showing somebody something, but when you leave, they might forget a step and then get stuck. So if they have a reference of what you worked on, they can practice it later. And this is just going to help them feel more independent, more confident, and just allow them to practice more successfully. So some examples of how you can note take, you can either write out steps, or you could even draw the screen, like just take a piece of paper and label parts of a rectangle as if it were the screen. If you're using Zoom, you can use the annotation feature to highlight and circle things on the screen. So if you've never used that, I don't know if you'll be able to see it now, but when you're the host of a meeting, there will be a button in the toolbar it's like a pencil and it says annotate. And then you'll be able to draw things on your screen. And you can even text, type things out and give them directions. There's even like little buttons, like arrows. So that could be really helpful.
I'd also encourage you to have the late tech adapter take their own notes. So it's not just you writing your words, but that they're actually writing their words, because that's helpful as well. Then they own the notes.
I don't know if my internet is unstable or if yours is, Vanessa, but you cut out. So I'm just going to repeat what you said. But I think you said that you want to ask the person to write out their own steps, right, in their own words. Yeah, especially if somebody's new to tech and they want to write it in their own words. I think they're going to remember it the best. Yeah, and just keep it simple. I think when you're note taking, that's also going to make it a lot easier. The next thing is just helping the person build a sense of confidence, right? I think this is really important to just learning in general. So you just want to celebrate their accomplishments. I think it's really nice when you can point out to somebody like, look at all the things we've done together, look at how much progress you've made. I think this is a really important aspect of getting older adults to feel excited about technology, because a lot of people do have hesitations about it or have a lot of frustrations about it. So just developing that sense of confidence, I think, really goes a long way. And you might notice that somebody uses self-deprecating language. I hear that a lot when people call me. So you just want to reassure them that like they're not the only one. There are other people in their shoes. And that with time and practice, they'll feel a lot more capable. And like we said earlier, it's nice for them to see that you also get hung up on tech stuff too. I think can be really comforting. And the last part of this that I think is important is the sense of learning together, right? So you're not only helping them learn a new skill, but you're developing a friendship and you're also potentially learning things yourself. And so don't be afraid to search for something online. Show them how to find something online. And if you're unsure what to do, please email me or your administrator and let them know that you're stuck on a topic or just want some advice. So like some examples are if I have a volunteer working with somebody who's visually impaired, it can be really challenging, especially if the volunteer doesn't know how to use accessibility features. So I do get those kinds of questions a lot. And, I want to be helpful. So do let me know if that comes up. So does anybody have any questions about these best practices?
Yes, I have a question that has to do with my lack of technology skills. So when I want to know something about my phone, I go to my laptop and I Google on my laptop, or I go to YouTube on my laptop. I do very little on my phone, and I find the phone hard to use basically, but also the screen is so small. And so I'm wondering, if I was in someone's home and all they have is a phone and I have my phone with me, I mean, and there's no Wi-Fi, I could bring my laptop, but I have to hook it up to something. And they may not have it, or they may not know how to hook up to the Wi-Fi that might be available in their building or something. What would you suggest?
Yeah, we do try to confirm that somebody has Wi-Fi before requesting help from our program. So if they don't have Wi-Fi at home, like we would I have had situations where they want to volunteer to help them with that, but that doesn't come up very often. I think most people have Wi-Fi, or we try to get them somewhere where they can get help getting access to the internet. But what you said about the phones and like the small screens, I would ask them before you meet with them, or you go to their home, like what devices they're currently using or have. And then, if you might want to bring your laptop. I do think that's a good idea.
But it might not be useful is what I'm afraid of. Yeah, that it's not.
Yeah, you definitely
because I know there's people in our village that they have either they have no internet. I know one lady, there is internet in her building, but she doesn't know how to get it. I know because her neighbor was in the village too and could get it. But I certainly don't know how to access it.
That is one of the pre-screening questions that Catherine or the administrator, or the administrator of the villages should be asking. So they should have that information. I do have a member in Silver Spring Village who didn't have Wi-Fi, but when she did ask for the service, she did have Wi-Fi, but for the longest time she was using DSL. And so we wouldn't have been able to do this with her at that point. And most of what she was asking for when she was doing that was she was having issues with the internet. So that's why she finally got on Wi-Fi. But now those are questions that DeRote has given to the administrators to find out before you even walk in the door. And if they don't have the answer, it's okay. From the administrator, you might want to ask the administrator, do you know if they have Wi-Fi?
Oh yeah, no.
And if they don't have that information, you could always ask the member.
Yeah. Well, I'm very familiar. I'm not the administrator because I gave that to somebody else, but I'm probably the one most familiar. And we do have a lot of people that we would like to get using technology more. Some of them more for their own safety than anything else. So if the power goes out, they can let Pepco know. They can make a call from their cell phone, but they're likely not. And of course, if the power goes out, they don't have their Wi-Fi anyway.
That's what I was thinking immediately.
But so there's people where the work will be concentrated on the phone. And that's where I just said, oh boy, I have such a hard time doing things on the phone. How am I, going to be able to teach people?
I mean, this could be a learning experience for you. I mean, there are ways to make things easier. Like if it's an iPhone, there is the magnification tool. Siri.
I can magnify on my Android too. I can magnify things on my Android.
Like Siri, or I don't know what it's called in Android, but like those can be so helpful because you can just ask the phone to do what you need, right? Like you can just ask it to set reminders. You can ask it to do lots of things. Sometimes I forget like just how much Siri can do. But there are ways to make things easier. So I would definitely encourage you to look into that. I'm also not an expert, so it can All right, I'm gonna move on to just boundaries to keep like and how to just maintain boundaries. So we ask that you don't assist with financial transactions like online banking or entering credit card information. So if somebody is asking you to teach them how to online shop, just either look away when they're entering their credit card information or ask them to stop sharing their screen with you at that time. Let us know if you do get any requests for anything that's involving money or personal information. We don't want you to get too involved in that way and make the other person feel like it's a privacy invasion. For the same reason, we ask for you to not take over somebody's screen if you're visiting them over Zoom. Some people might not be familiar with this remote control technology, and so we just ask that you refrain from doing it. And also, we really want you to make sure that the older adult is the one using their device and practicing on it, right? Because that's how they're going to learn. So you don't want to do it for them. In terms of in-person contact, like I said, we have agency-wide standards. We ask that before you visit, you ask them if they would like you to wear a mask. Some people might want you to do that, some people might not care. And then on the day of your visit, it's good to confirm with that person that you're both feeling well. And if you need to reschedule, it's totally fine. But doing that confirmation call, I think, is just going to be helpful in general. In terms of unscheduled calls or texts, so like I said earlier, we don't want you to feel like you're this person's personal hotline. If you are getting a lot of messages or you feel like this person needs additional support in some way, like if they are isolated, do let us know. All of the organizations have other programs that can assist people in other ways. So like DeRote has like a friendly visiting program where we have volunteers who could visit somebody once a week for like up to like a year. And I know the villages also have similar programs relating to visiting and helping people with errands, which is my next point. If somebody's asking you to do errands for them, feel free to say no. That's not what you're there for. And just keep in mind that if you do say yes to somebody's request, it's a lot harder to say no later on if they ask you for the same thing. So just keep that in mind, but you are welcome to help if you feel so inclined, but don't feel obligated to. And when it comes to emergencies and concerns, please call 911 if anything happens. We try to give you the person's phone number and address so that you have it in the event of an emergency. That hasn't happened in the time that I've been with DeRote, but it can happen. So just letting you know that, and then let the administrator know if anything does happen, so that we're aware of it. And if you have any concerns about the person you're meeting with, so, if that person, is isolated and doesn't have other people visiting them, you might be the only person to notice that something is going on with them. So it's really helpful if you make your administrator aware of anything that you notice that's off. You are the eyes and ears for your organization, so do let us know if you see anything. And we have a couple minutes left. So we're gonna do an exercise. Vanessa, do you want to do it?
I can do it.
We're
So.
going to do an exercise where Vanessa is going to pretend to be an older adult, and we are going to help her send an email. And so if you want to volunteer, you can either raise your hand.
But I need you to stop sharing your screen so I can share mine. There you go. Okay. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
But it's just your email.
Correct. You're going to tell
Okay.
me, you're going to instruct me how to send a new email. So
Right.
I'm just we're all looking at the same screen, and you need to tell me how to start. Whoever wants to tell me how to start.
Yeah, whoever wants to start by giving us the first step.
I'm happy to.
Okay.
Thanks.
So Vanessa, what you need to do here to start an email is, do you see towards the upper left of your screen where it says compose?
Right here?
Yes, click on that.
Okay,
Okay, great.
if it works. There we
Okay.
go.
Oops.
Sorry
You
about
got
that.
that twice.
I got it more than twice, but okay.
Okay, does somebody want to give the second sound?
Sure. Hey, Vanessa. Right here where the blinking cursor is,
What's a
you'll
cursor?
the cursor is it's
I see
essentially
a
what,
line blinking. Is that what you're talking about?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
it shows where you're able to type at any given moment. Go ahead and type who you want to send an email to.
This is my email if anybody wants
Yeah.
to email.
And I know it by heart. Aren't you impressed? Did I do it right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Press enter.
What is the next step? So she typed it in. Is there anything she needs to do?
Just either press enter or click on the drop down right there.
All right.
Okay.
Amazing. All right, who else wants to go?
Are you just sending this email to one person?
Yeah, I think for now, just one person.
Okay, then, oh. If you click enter, I think the cursor will go down to the subject line of your email.
Didn't seem to when I click enter.
It didn't happen.
You press
Uh-oh.
tab. Is it tab?
Somebody else gave you instructions, Vanessa, that I didn't quite get. But
I think if you press tab.
okay. Oh, so you press tab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it and it worked.
Amazing.
Wait, so where did she find? I don't know that. Where's tab? I
It's
don't
on
know.
the
I'm using a laptop.
So am I.
on the left. Like
It's on my left side of the
all the way to the left.
keyboard.
Oh, I see it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I can just touch my screen and go.
I probably could too, but
Okay, what is the next step?
So now you would write here what this email is about. So is that when it comes to the person, it will have a title to it.
so I'm writing something in. Is that okay?
Yes, you just can type it right there.
Great. Okay, using the word title was great. This is the first time somebody has said that in one of these trainings, so that's a great analogy. All right, who wants to give the next step? Eric, do you want to go?
Sure. So as a next step, there's a line below checking in, a very faint line.
Okay.
If you click anywhere in that big open space below that line,
Worked.
now you
Yeah.
see the blinking vertical line moves there. So from here, you can type a greeting, something like hello, and then the first name of the person that you're going to email. And then I usually do a comma. And then if you hit enter twice, it will line break you down so you can start the message that you want to send to this person. You can start typing here.
Amazing. Okay. Great. What is the final step? Who wants to go?
Press send.
Oh, but I would say that you should put your name there. Because Other, your email address might not be enough to identify you to the person you're sending it to.
How's that?
Amazing.
Great.
All right, Vanessa, the next step is to find the blue send button at the bottom. In the middle.
Okay. Oh, the send, you said the word send, right?
The word send.
Right here?
Yes. Yes. So if you click on that, it should send your email.
It did.
Amazing. Yeah, and it says on the bottom left that the message was sent.
Exactly.
And if you're not sure if you sent the email, you can check actually.
How do I do that?
You go, you go over to the left and you'll see a list of different sections of your email.
Over
And one
here?
of them, yes, exactly there. And if you move your cursor down till you get to sent and click there.
If it works. Oh, there it is.
And now you can see that the last email that you sent, and you know it's last because it's at the top of the page there, is this one. And it'll tell you what time you actually sent it to.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa.
I will stop my share. But thank you all for teaching me how to send a email.
Right. So that is the end of this portion for the village volunteers, and the next part of this is going to be just specific to Dorot. So do let me know if you're confused in which group you are, but if you are a village volunteer, thank you so much for attending tonight. It was great to meet you. And you will get an email from your administrator after this with any follow-up that you'll need to know. Right? So thank you so much. Have a good
Thank you, Catherine.
Please stay if you're from Dorot.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I think most people are from Dorot, I'm hoping. All right. Okay. So I might have, I started this meeting talking a little bit about Dorot, but I'm going to give you some more detail. So Dorot is an organization that was founded on Jewish principles. So some of you might recognize the word Dorot as the Hebrew word for generations. So the goal is bringing generations together. And so while we do incorporate Jewish traditions and values into the work we do, our staff and the older adults we serve come from all walks of life, religion, and backgrounds. I'm not Jewish, but our adult community is very diverse. But the one thing that a lot of people have in common that are either working at Dorot or our volunteers is that they're concerned with the way that older adults are experiencing their social networks diminish or shrink, and they want more connections with others, right? And I think there's a lot of studies that show how much social isolation can impact somebody's health. So we really do see this as a public health issue. So the next steps after this meeting are you're going to be getting an email from the volunteer services department. So volunteers@DorotUSA.org is the email you'll receive it from. They'll ask you to submit a background check application. You will have you don't have to pay for it, but you can if you would like to. And to submit 2 personal references. So it doesn't need to be professional references. It's basically just a short link somebody can fill out in like a couple of minutes. So you can send this to anyone that's not family. And then if you can submit a volunteer profile, that's just some general information about you. So the 3 links will be sent to you via email to do those 3 things. And then you'll also be receiving an email to join Mon Ami, which is the online platform I mentioned earlier, where you will sign up to meet with older adults. So there is where I post. I try to be as detailed as possible. I'll share where they live. So if they live in Manhattan, I'll write something like West 90s so that you have a sense of where in the city they're located. I'll share with you what device they're using. If it's an old device, I'll even sometimes share like how old the device is. And then I'll give you some detailed information about what they want help with, like what their goals are, If they have any like visual or auditory impairments, I'll try to let you know that as well. And yeah, so you'll receive an email to join MonaMe and you'll create an account. And I will start posting. The trouble with MonaMe is that when I get new volunteers, it doesn't show you the old opportunities. So I have to repost them. So I'll be reposting those throughout the week as you guys sign up and join the app. And then once you do see those, you can book an opportunity, and then you'll receive an email with the information about where to go to visit them, and any other details you might need. And then you'll be asked to call your match to schedule your first meeting. And there is a phone number. There's like one phone number that we use. It's a MonaMe number. And it's the same number for both the volunteers and the older adults. It'll connect you based on whatever cell phone you provide to us. So make sure the number you give us is the number you are going to be calling from. That way the phone system will work. You can give the older adult your actual phone number and your email. That's fine. But we do use the phone system because it lets me know that you contacted the person. That way I know that you've gotten in contact. And also we use MonaMe so that the volunteers can schedule their visits. That way I can see that you are planning to meet with somebody in the future. And also on MonaMe, you'll be able to submit feedback after your visits just to let me know how things are going. And I really appreciate when the volunteers provide details. So any detail is helpful. Just about the older adult, what you worked on, what device they're using, any additional concerns you might have. All of that you could put in the feedback form. And you'll get emails to remind you of all of that. Okay, and so I'll just talk a little bit about the other DeRote programs that we have, just in case you do want to volunteer outside of tech coaching. You are welcome to, but I do hope that you will also just do some tech coaching. So we have a friendly visiting program, which is an in-person year-long commitment where you're matched with an older adult to speak with and visit on a regular basis and develop a friendship with. If you and your tech coaching match want to evolve into a friendly visiting match, you can do that. Just let me know so that we're aware. We also have a response team. And so this is for more like errands that people need help with. So that's really for requests that people have that can pretty much involve like anything, like picking up things for them, anything that doesn't involve money, or going to their home and like helping them with a task. We have legacy projects. So that involves like interviewing some of the older adult constituents, and I think like building a project around that. We have a Caring Calls program, which is a remote option where you would call an older adult on the phone for 8 weeks, just to develop a friendship. And the same thing is also available in Westchester. It's called Telephone Friends. And then we have a University Without Walls program. So that is a phone-based program. So it's a lot of people who use University Without Walls are people who don't know how to use either a computer or a cell phone. And so they're accessing our programs over like a landline, and they're listening to group discussions or lectures. It can be about really anything. We have a lot of different topics. So if you're interested in being a facilitator or even helping out with connecting those calls, because we have people who call each individual person that's going to be in the group beforehand. You can let us know if you're interested in that. And we also have a Genuine Connections program, which is for volunteers who are above the age of 65, who want to meet with teens and participate in workshops together. Yeah, and then some just fun facts about our volunteers and older adults. The oldest of our DeRote clients are as old as like 108. And in terms of our volunteers, they can really range from anywhere from like 5 to 98. I would say a lot of the people who request tech coaching are in their 70s, 80s. We even have some people in their 90s who want help. And I have seen a lot of success. I actually spoke with somebody yesterday who's 91 and is learning how to use an iPhone. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, so if you have any questions not related to tech coaching, do email them to volunteers@Duro USA. And like I said, you'll receive an email from them anyway. So let them know if you have any concerns. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, do let me know now. But other than that, I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you have a question?
No, I was just saying thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Have a good evening. And do let me
Thank
know if
you.
you have questions.
Thanks, Catherine. Take care.